What's up, all my folks on YouTube land? Daryl, also known as the Finisher. Today, we're talking about doing estimates, man. Trying to get a proper estimate. I've had a lot of questions about estimating, and over the next few videos, we'll be getting into some more numbers. Today is more about ways to come up with an estimate where it's just going to be accurate. You know, the most accurate ways to come up with it, so you're not scrambling. You're not, what they say, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Trying to get one job to pay for the next because you ran out of money on this job, but you're undercharged, and just everything's a total disaster. And we don't want that. We don't want that. We want things to run smoothly, and we want you to make some money. So let's get into a few different ways to make sure that your estimates are on point. First and foremost, you have to be thorough with your estimates. So you go in somebody's house or go into a property or in a building or whatever you're doing, you won't have to take detailed notes and all that. Look, this is what I do. I'm an iPad, iPad kind of guy. So I have my iPad and, always have the pencil. So I walk in with the iPad and the pencil, and then I use an app called Notability. You probably heard of it. Actually, there's one called Notability. Is another one I'll think of. I'll put it on the screen when I think of it. But I take detailed notes with those a lot of times, and you can take pictures. I can write over top of the pictures. I can, I collect all the measurements. You can use the app for the iPad that takes pictures and measurements, but I'd rather just take my own measurements, write them on there. But regardless, that's the whole thing. You want these estimates to be as thorough as possible. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not a fan of on-the-spot estimates. I get why some people do it. I get why it's a tactic in sales, especially when you're a pure salesman. You want to get that sale while you're there. That's why they'll lower the price. They'll go over. They have a script and they'll go lower, and they'll do all sorts of things to get people to bite while they're there. I just don't tend to have that issue. Normally, I want to be able to go home, sit down, look at the pictures, see if there's anything that I missed, because there's nothing worse than doing an estimate, then you get the job accepted, get the deposit, then you go to the house to start, and then there's something that you overlook that you realize is going to be a major problem. I did that. I hate to say it to you. I did that not long ago on a tile job where I didn't realize that this tile job was in a area where no matter where you came in the house, you had to go through this area. So I had to end up using like rapid set mortar because I was gonna, no matter what I was gonna do, I was gonna block off the kitchen, I was gonna block off the garage, I was gonna block off the way coming in the house, I was gonna block off, didn't matter what I did, I was gonna be blocking areas off. So I didn't have a spot I could start or do and tell people to stay off of it for 24 hours. Changed the entire dynamics of the job, and then it just turned into a mess. I got done, but I learned, once again, you have to look at all aspects of the job, So that's first things first, man. Like, take tedious notes, take your notes, get your pictures, sit down and thoroughly go over all the pictures, and make sure that you get all the details. One of the first things you're gonna have to do, and it's major, it's absolutely major, is you're gonna have to fix the customer's mindset on the actual reality of what it takes to do the job. All right, you got a lot of customers, you got a lot of contractors too. We do the same thing, but maybe not as bad as the customers. And I get it. They want to save money, or they don't want to overpay, or what they think is overpaying. So they're not sure how much it should cost. They'll try to downplay what the job is. And I know we all heard it before. It's like, well, all you have to do is, that's a famous customer quote. All you have to do is, all I need you to do is, it should only take like 2 coats of paint or something like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's gonna take 2 coats of paint, but you have to put primer in it first, and you gotta tell the customer that, hey, I know these paint companies say it's paint and primer all in one, but there's a difference between primer and paint. And you gotta primer and seal it first, then you have to put 2 coats of paint on it. Then you want me to paint the baseboards and all the trim separate. Then it's just, then there's obstacles all in the way, and there's windows I gotta paint around and cut out and cut in. Then you want a different paint for the ceiling and paint for the walls. There could be a whole lot more to it, but it's up to you to get that across to the customer, right? Because that way you can give your estimate and they got to come to an understanding knowing that you are the expert, right? I'm the expert. When I walk in, I am the expert. Me. When I ask them questions, it has to do with maybe I'm trying to check their level of expectations, see exactly what they're looking for, find out what kind of situations they've worked with before, check their understanding, and maybe try to get them to, but I'm also at the same time trying to get them to understand that, okay, there's a difference in levels of paint. I'm not gonna just use any paint, right? It's a difference. If you want me to come in here and just do the ceiling by itself, what's gonna take a lot more time to do? I have to cut in the ceiling upside down. And you got to cover everything in the room because you can't have splatters all over, little splatter marks all over the place. There's just levels to this, right? But you have to get that across to the customer. That's like one of your first missions. So the whole time, from the time you walk in that door to the time you leave, they should understand that you are the expert and that you have their best interest in mind. You have your own, but they have to understand that it's also what maybe is in your best interest as a contractor is also going to be in their best interest as the customer. So set their expectations. You have to set minimum prices for some of the things that you do. All right. It's just, you can have just a base price of, I might tell people anything. If I just come out, it's $125 for me to come out. If I gotta turn a screw, it's $125, right? If I gotta take any tools out of the truck, it's $125 if I'm gonna do any kind of work. It doesn't matter what it is, right? Now that's the change depending on the nature of the work. All hours are not equal, right? They're just not. An hour of me putting together furniture is not the same of an hour of me working on wood rot or something like that. I might be able to fix the job an hour on both of them, but one is maybe a skill that I've practiced, that I learned over time, that is just more complex, and I might need more materials to do it or whatever. And the other is a base level skill. You have to decide what it is, but regardless, you have to decide on your minimums. What is your minimum charge? All these kind of go together, but I like to break them down individually, just because just to go into a little bit of depth, because it's just good to look at it that way sometimes, right? You can get a little more into it. So my next one is obstacles. You have to look for things that are gonna be in the way. It's crazy. I had a job, like I told you, my first year was a crash course. It was a PhD level course in the handyman business, do's and don'ts. Man, I did so many jobs that were like, I did a job where it was a ceiling, it was a high ceiling. They had a cathedral ceiling in a bedroom, right? And I went in there and I quoted the ceiling to paint the ceiling. I thought I would just be able to maneuver around all the things that were on the floor, because I'm doing the ceiling, and I'd just be able to use my roller and reach around everything. Man, let me tell you something. There was so much stuff on that floor. It was like a landmine field, right? It was just stuff everywhere. And I ended up tipping over a lamp. And the lady asked me later, like, yeah, there was a lamp in there. Is there something, it's one of those things that, you can't really put a price on. I was like, lady, I couldn't walk in the room. Like, there's no way you could expect me to do it. So I kind of did get irritated with that. But I also was mad at myself because I should have had all that taken into account. So you have to take into account, what are the obstacles? Like, let me show you something here. There's a job right here where there's a bed that I did. There's a bed. There's the biggest bed. So I have a choice. You could either try to charge them to take this bed apart, because you're going to scratch up their hardwood floors trying to slide it somewhere. Big king size, giant, super heavy. Or I'll work in the price ways to get over the bed. Like, how, I'm thinking like, okay, how can I work over top of this? Okay, well, I got to bring this other thing, bring this plank, and then I can kind of maneuver across the top. But that costs extra, right? So you have to look for the obstacles and how you're gonna work around things. Everything. A big part, something I see people mess up with all the time is the supplies. Now, you have materials. To me, I kind of separate it in my mind. Maybe not on paper, but there's materials and then there's supplies. But to me, the materials for the job are what's needed. Like, if I'm doing a job with shiplap, then shiplap is the material. Your drywall might be the material. Supplies to me are like, it might be muds and glues and screws and stuff like that. You have to account for everything, okay? I don't think, sometimes I think contractors will do that and they'll do a job and like, everything's included. Not thinking that a bucket of screws that they need to work in the lumber, in treated lumber, might be $40, $50 for that. And they just didn't take it into account. They might be changing colors. It might be rollers. It might be paintbrushes. It might be all these different things. A roll of plastic is like $32 now for a 12-foot wide roll of plastic. $32. So if you don't take into account that, man, this job is gonna need like 2 rolls of plastic, that's $60-something right there that you're just not thinking of. So you have to think of it all the tape, all the little things. You have to be accurate. And see, this is one of the reasons why I say I like to just take all the information and then go sit down and look at everything, because I don't want to miss that. So I'll write down on the list of all the materials I'm gonna need for this job, and I to come up with a number. I don't just coming off the top. Nah, unless you just know that you've done this job a million times, and it's like, okay, with all the materials, it all ends up being $7,000, and you know that. In the end, I give you some wiggle room. Then you've done them enough. But we're talking to people just starting out. You gotta account for all your materials. Not only that with materials, but you need to know. Say you're doing something like doors or something like that. If you're supplying that door, you're gonna get it. Then it's not just the door that they're paying for. It's you have to go and order that door. Anybody who's had to go order doors and then deal with the stores and stuff the door ain't showing up. Where is it at? It shows up. Oh, it's too little. You got to call the customer. They didn't do the right size. You got to ship it back. And then all the things you might have to deal with, there needs to be compensation. It needs to be built into that price, right? Not just I'm installing a door and that's it. No. It's not that simple. So you have to take all of that into consideration. I try not to even get materials just because I just at this point in my life, I have no desire to just chase stuff down. I want to go to the job, have everything ready, and get to work. But I do understand that materials is a big part of a lot of people's businesses, where you're supplying the materials and you're doing your markup and all that. I get that, but for me, I just rather stay away from it. But you need to make sure that all that is thought about when you're doing your estimate. All these different things kind of culminate in another factor is how long is the job gonna take, all right? I mean, this is pretty much what it comes down to in the end. Now, all jobs aren't equal. Like I told you, a week at one job might not be a week at another job, or maybe it is. Maybe for you just come up with a rate that it doesn't matter what you're doing. This week is gonna cost X amount of dollars. And, no matter how you decide to come up with it, it's up to you. But you want to be accurate as far as figuring out how long things take you, because you don't want to have a 5-day job that turns into a 10-day job and then everything is cut in half. And I'm not a believer in, if I give a customer a price, I'm going back like, hey, it's more to it than I thought, sir, ma'am. Can I please have more money? Because, when I did the estimate, I didn't take everything into account. So I know you had a budget. Now I need you to just give me an extra, a couple $1,000, just, even if, I don't know if you have it or not, but it just really doesn't matter because I messed up. No, you can't do that. It's ridiculous. To me it is. If it's something where you open in a wall and there's something there, that should be already understood before you start. That this price is subject to change, depending on what you find. I mean, there ain't really much is gonna change on certain jobs. So, I'm like, you want the most accurate estimate you can have so you can avoid that. Because that's gonna put a huge strike in your book with customers if, halfway through jobs, you're always asking for more money because it's something you didn't see. So, Daryl, also known as the Finisher, like, comment, subscribe. Also, I'm gonna put some videos up here that I think you'll like, that I think you'll go with this conversation. And remember, stay safe, be blessed, and if the trades don't work, nothing else does.